Hey everyone, welcome back to my cozy corner. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I'm just a regular old college student, Kelsey Dominguez. But if you're not new here, welcome back to the chaos. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and preface this, and I know I've said like the word preface a lot in the last couple of videos, but I am actually sick, and while I am getting over the cold, it's still a bit like you can hear my nasally voice, you can hear the congestion, you can like probably hear some coughing every now and again. But this past week, it's actually spring break. Sorry to keep going around, but it is spring break. And last week, my roommates and I had a bit of a mediation meeting with the RSA or RLC, sorry, Res Life Coordinator. And I'm not going to talk about the topics of that meeting, but there was a person who was sick, and that person is the same person that there was an issue revolving around. It was between that person and another individual. That individual was me, of course. But anyways, that's besides the point. That person was sick, and then they left to go home for the break. And I was like, all right, cool, whatever. But then, like, literally the next day, I got sick, and I was like, no, oh my gosh, the gifts that keeps on giving. And I'm not the only person that's sick. Another person's actually sick at the moment, so it's funny. It's a bit interesting, but I am getting over the cold. The first day, it hit me like a freaking truck. Like I had a sore throat the whole day, and then that night I had like a fever, chills, like um what do you call it, like hallucinations, throwing up, like coughing, nasal congestion. It was just a whole thing. And the next day, which is today, I'm just kind of, just getting over it, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, it is my March TBR wrap up, and so we're gonna be talking about the three books that I read this March and how I felt about them. Now, I'm not gonna lie, the first two, the two out of three, the two out of the three books that I read this month were not it for me. I'm so sorry, guys. Like I was really looking forward to these books because I've heard people talk about them and love them, but they were just so long, and I won't lie. I feel like it could have been like 300 pages shorter. Now, as you can see, like these are really thick books. These have like, I think this one has like 800 pages, and the second one has like 860 pages, and I ended up having to just like listen to the second book on audio. But without further ado, this is the Priory, the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I gave this one a 4 star on Goodreads because you know how Goodreads doesn't like give an exact one, but I would say this was like a 3.75 star, almost 4 star. It was good. It had a few like it had a few minor gripes. The biggest ones were just like it's so thick, it's so long, and it kept going back and forth between different point of views. And I felt like certain point of views weren't really like necessary for the plot. It was kind of just like a side story. And while I like kind of enjoyed it, it was too long. But anyways, the Priory of the Orange Tree is about kingdoms at war because of religion and their beliefs, and their main opposing sides are the East and the West, which goes over like two different characters on the East and two different characters on the West side. But there is one fear which most kingdoms worry about, and that is the return of the Nameless One. So the Nameless One is like this big scary dragon that you can see at the top of the page. This dragon is actually part of a scene from the book, so I'm not going to go too into detail. But basically, one of the dragons, like the Nameless Ones, I'm just going to call him like a knight or whatever. He ends up going to terrorize this kingdom, and he's basically like, "Hey, Nameless One is coming soon. Blah 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 blah. You're all gonna die, yada yada," and terrorizes them for a bit, and then leaves shortly after. The Nameless One is basically this like purgatory style dragon of the abyss, like super scary guy. And the whole like universe of this world, the whole realm, the east and west sides, they come together to fight off the Nameless One and kill it off for good and blah 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 blah. But getting there was like a bit annoying because we have to build the world, right? We have to introduce the characters, their backgrounds, and like each one is going to have their own trauma stories and like who they love and forbidden and like certain specific like things that they have to do. And I'm just like, okay, cool, I love that because I want to get introduced to all these characters. But this one is totally different from, let's say, like Queen of Shadows, Airfire, well no, Queen of Shadows, Tower of Dawn, and like basically like the last 3 or 4 books of the Throne of Glass series, where there is multiple POVs, but it's just wrapped up like well, if that makes sense. Like there's literally 3 or 4 books that explain all these POVs, and then they finally wrap it up at the end. This book kind of like it felt rushed, is what I'm saying. It felt rushed, and it felt too long, and it felt shoved together, and it felt almost meaningless with some of the characters' POVs. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Two characters from the East Side were my favorites. Was Dumai? Oh no, I'm so sorry, not Dumai. What's her name? Tane. I love Tane and her dragon Naimathan, and how like I feel like I brought up a lot of East Asian cultures with how like the her dragon looked versus like the Western dragon, which is like the nameless one guy, the big baddie. And then on the west side we had Sabran and Edaz. I did like their sorry, I love this story, but it was just like those those four characters were like the most important parts of the plot. There were a couple of side characters that were a pair of siblings that I really enjoyed, but there were just a couple of characters that I feel had no meaning to the plot other than like a little side story. But it just like they were mostly forgotten, and then when we did talk about them, I just didn't care about them. But overall, 3.75 stars. I didn't hate it, but I probably won't be reading this again at least for like another 10 years or so. And even if I do decide to pick the series back up, I'm probably only going to read this one because this next one, guys, this is a prequel. Okay, this is technically a two-part series, but they're interconnected standalones. This happens like a million years before this one, and I say a million years, but I don't really remember if it's like 500 years or 1,000 years, but it's like a significant amount of time before the Priory of the Orange Tree. But this is A Day of Fallen Night. Guys, this was a rough time to get through. I want to say this is like a 3.5 stars, maybe 3.6, because like the ending I really liked. There was a couple of moments that had me gag because I was like, bro, ain't no way. Like, okay, if you know, you know. Quick little spoiler alert. If it's too much for you to get through, like skip 20 seconds ahead of this part. But like this girl, the queen, literally has a child, and then she freaking carries the child through an ongoing battlefield, basically like in a way to like give a symbol of hope and be like, hey, the child is born, like we're good, guys. My lineage is gonna keep going on, and but like it's supposed to be a symbolism of hope, but like I just started laughing because I'm like, dude, you literally just gave birth, and you're bringing your child through a battlefield, and everyone's just like stopping to watch you like run through this battlefield, like child raised. Like I don't know, the image that I gave into my head was just funny. But okay, end of the spoiler, but this is essentially 500 or so years before, and it still goes on it still goes over like like basically it's about specific characters that were mentioned in the first book in the Priory, and like how they became to be like so awesome and so well known in the Priory of the Orange Tree. Because the main character Glorian, Glorian the Ninth or something like that, Glorian the Sixth or whatever, she is mentioned in the Priory of the Orange Tree, but she's not really touched upon. She's just like mentioned as being like this big figure, this important person and whatever. And in this book, we're going over her story and a bunch of other people's stories, of course, but her story is basically like her mom, his name is Sabran, which really funny because Sabran the Sixth or something like that is like this really cold-hearted person, and then Sabran the Ninth, which is the main character in the Priory, is like this what do you call it, pessimistic, withdrawn, almost acts like super bratty, gets what is used to getting whatever she wants and has nothing to really like prove her worth for. It's just like a totally different like perspective. But Gloria and the Six or whatever, it's basically her story and how she became how great she is. But we're also following the members of Priory, which is like this organization full of witches that protect against the nameless one, or like hide the nameless one, whatever. They're super important. But we're following Tanuva and Suyu, who are two members of the Priory, and basically this book is an interweaving of the stories of three women: Tanuva, which is part of the Priory; Glorian, which is the queen or whatever; and Dumai, which is on the east side. From three wildly different fantastical cultures, yet they were united through their devotion to their loved ones and this quest to hunt down the demonic worms which threaten their world. So in the Priory, we see a lot of like different types of demonic creatures that are part of the nameless ones like army, but in this book they're not introduced yet until like the middle, so it's like their origin story. It's basically like if you've watched I don't know, like Naruto, and like their prequel, their postquel or whatever, like this is the kids version. Like this is kind of what that is. It's like a reverse like next generation type of story. This though was definitely not my favorite. It took me probably 20 days to get through the Priory of the Orange Tree, just because, you know, school and finals and midterms and all that. But the Day of Fallen Night, I had to skim through this on Audible. I literally got a temporary Audible membership just to skim through this because I was like, look, March is almost over and I need to get through this, and I haven't gotten through this yet, and I just need to get through it. So we're going to get through it together, and we're going to cry, but we're going to get through it because it's almost March. It's almost April. March is almost over. Quick rant over. That's the Day of Fallen Night. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. It wasn't my favorite book of this month. It was like my least favorite actually of this entire year so far. But that being besides the point, we're going to talk about the star of this month. We're going to talk about Immortal Dark by Tigest Girma. I give this a 5-star, guys. I cannot believe that the second book isn't out because I like really wanted to read like continue on throughout the second book, like for the second book. But it does care like it does like how do you call it? It wraps up the ending pretty well, and it like leaves you on the end of your seat. Not like there's a cliffhanger, but it's like when a group of characters like it clips over a hill or like go to the top of a hill and they're seeing like this valley and they're like, all right guys, it's time to keep going. Next chapter, let's go. And I'm like, dude, I need this book right now. I need the second book right now. But that being beside to the point, Immortal Dark is basically like the Cruel Prince meets Ninth House. I have not read Ninth House. I had to like draw up a summary of each of these books so I know what I was talking about and I was staying on track. In this dangerously romantic dark academia fantasy, where a lost heiress must infiltrate an arcane society and live with a vampire she suspects killed her family and kidnapped her sister. It began long before my time, but something has always hunted our family. Okay, so that's basically like what she's saying. So this is a dark academia where there's an academy full of vampires, and the students and the vampires are separate, but the vampires are dealing with their own stuff and own academics, but the students are basically like learning how to trust vampires because at the very end, should they graduate, they're going to be these vampires companions, and each house is run by humans, but vampires are like their companions, and each house has a different amount of companions, which are the vampires. And we start this book in a regular world, like normal people don't know about the vampires, but this girl, she knows about vampires, and she's looking for her dead sister, or sorry, she's looking for her lost sister, and she suspects that a vampire had taken her sister, and so she's like been investigating, she's been hunting people down, she's been like, hey, what's up, where's my sister at? And a dean from this college ended up coming to her with basically like a Hogwarts letter, like saying saying, hey, you've been accepted under like specific conditions, and they're like, hey, if you want to find your sister, we'll help you out, but you have some stuff that you need to take care of. And so she's like, nah, I'm good. She's like, well, you're actually really important in our society. She's like, why should I care? She's like, because you'll inherit a mansion. Girl, say less. I'm there. You're telling me about a separate life? All right, cool. So she's like, okay, well, what do I have to do to get that? She's like, well, insert these terms and conditions, but also at the very end of it, this like in the fine print, she's like, you have to spend this time with a vampire that you despise, a specific person that you hate, and you have to spend the entire day, like the entire time that you're at the academy with him, and learn to connect with him and learn to like accept him and whatever, and then you'll get your inheritance or whatever. She's like, ew, I don't like that. I hate this guy actually. And he's like I suspect that he's the one who killed my sister and who like took her or whatever. So she's like, she hates this guy. And the dean's like, we'll think about it, but you got until like next week, and then this offer is like mute point and whatever, and he'll just like get your inheritance, and then he'll like make a difference in a bad way or something like that. She really sells it up. And so the girl, I think her name is Kidon. Yeah, Kidon's the main character name. She's like, fine, whatever. She ends up going to this academy, and it is, I won't lie, this is the most, I haven't really read a lot of enemies to lovers, but this is probably the most like enemies to lovers I've ever met. These guys are constantly at each other's throats, and like Kidon is constantly scheming against Susenios, which is the vampire that she has to live with. And throughout the entire book, that's what they're doing. And it's really funny because like Kidon hates this guy, and it's almost like a childish like hate where it's like, I despise you. I love to see you, like I would love to see you fall to ruin, and like oops, and like just she does a bunch of stuff to like sabotage him, and it's kind of funny. But at the in the middle, like close to the second 2 out of third of this book, things start getting a little bit steamy, and I won't lie, I was hella eating it up. I'm like, dang, he really pulled some. Oof. There was a scene, you guys. There was a scene where it's like, essentially once a year, this academy has like a host like a purge event for the vampires, where it's like they can just go all out, be super like let their animal instincts arise, and like basically like it's a free for all for the vampires. And so, but like only to other vampires, not the humans. The humans can't be involved. But Susenios gets super freaking angry at this one student and ends up literally, like the way I imagined it in my head, he pulls his hand or like stabs a student and then takes out the knife, plunges his hand into the student's in like he ends up attaching his hand to his spine and like really fucking it up from the inside of his body. And I'm like, damn, like that was a really like hefty scene. And I was just like, dang, bro, like and he's looking at Kidon this whole time while this is going on. And I was like, oh fuck, and like you're getting Kidon's point of view of being like, dude, I'm so fucking scared. And she's like about to run in tears, and she's terrified. This is like a predator prey situation. And Susenio's his friend is like, don't run, because he's not angry at you, he's angry for you. And that, guys, that made me cry so much, because I'm like, bro, he's so upset for her because this guy did some horrible shit and he's getting revenge for her. And I'm not gonna lie, like, this is mostly lust-ish. Like, they don't even say like I love you yet. They're still on the I hate you stuff, and they're having hate sex, and they're having hate like intimate moments, but it's like, they care for each other. And at the end they finally say like, I don't know why, but I do care for you. And she's like, yeah, I kind of care for you too, I just don't know why, blah blah blah. But there's a lot of stuff that happens. She ends up having some found family moments, and it's just really good. Highly recommend Immortal Dark. I listened to the audio on this one because, again, school and whatever, and I just wanted to get my March TBR like over with. But I highly recommend this book, especially if you're in a reading slump. Like, it's almost funny. But that is gonna sorry to like do an abrupt end, but that does wrap up my March TBR. I had like some threes this month, but this was definitely the saving grace because I'm tired. Like, it's midterm season for school, and I just want to go home. And it is spring break, but also I have a couple of midterms and heavy assignments due next week, so it's like this spring break ain't a break at all. It's just like a slight little, hey, relax a little bit, but also make sure you do your assignments and study. But that being besides the point, I'm super excited for April. I actually just started, it is April 1st, so I actually just started my April TBR. Stay tuned for next week. I am currently reading Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This is my first romance, and it is my first book by Ali Hazelwood as well. And I'm having a good time. I think I'm about 2/3 the way, and I'm having a great time. I'm listening to it on an audiobook, and it's fun. It's really rom-com. It's adorable, and I'm gonna talk about that next time. But I will see you guys next week for my April TBR, and we'll talk about what I'm reading this month. I'm actually really excited to talk about it. There's new books that are coming out this month that I'm planning to read that I have pre-ordered. And before I start to delve into a coughing fit, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. So if you liked this video, go ahead and like and subscribe. Go ahead and click that notification bell so that you know next week when I upload. And comment down below if you've read any of these books, and if you have, recommend some other books that you think I would like based off of this video. So that will be all, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.